Here we go. All right, microphones are working today. Welcome everybody to the specially called meeting of the Transportation Infrastructure Committee of the Metro Council. Today is Thursday, February 19, 2026. It is 4:30 p.m. This specially called meeting is able to happen because the Boring Company has made themselves available for an hour and a half today. So I want to thank them for being here. I do want to remind everybody that they are only here for an hour and a half. As set forth in the information on Council Connect and in the press release regarding this meeting, they will have a brief presentation. We will also have standard public comment, which I'll read those ground rules in a minute, but it's just the 8 minutes we always have for council committee meetings pursuant to our rules. Once the public comment and the presentation are over, I will then open it up for questions by the body. Those questions, if we have say 60 minutes left and there are 10 of you who raise your hand, I'm going to give everybody 6 minutes so that everybody has the opportunity to ask questions during whatever time we have remaining. If after the 90 minutes and after the Boring Company has been dismissed, we as a body want to suspend the rules and allow, we have a wait list for public comment today, those people on the wait list to speak and have continued discussion as a body, we can do so at that point. But we can decide after that 90 minutes if we feel the need as a committee to continue discussing this without the Boring Company present up here. I would also ask that questions today be for the Boring Company. If we have questions for metro departments or authorities or anybody who has not been invited to sit up here today, we can either hold those until after if those folks are here or ask them in our committee when those folks come either before this committee or GovOps or whatever committee those folks tend to come before as well. So with that, I will read the public comment information under state law, and we will go from there. Pursuant to Section 814.112 of the Tennessee Code, annotated time is reserved for public comment on legislative items appearing on this agenda. Members of the public wishing to speak may sign up on the council committee sign-up sheet posted outside the room where the committee is scheduled to meet. Public comment sign up for council committee meetings will end immediately before the meeting begins. Public comment is limited to 8 minutes total at council committee meetings, and each speaker is allowed up to 2 minutes to speak. All public comment speakers must present proof of Tennessee residency. Requests for interpretation services and or accessibility accommodations should be directed to the council office at 615-862-6780. All right, we have 4 people signed up for public comment who we will call on at the beginning of this meeting. And like I said, we have 3 people on the wait list. So if we decide as a committee to waive the rules and allow those people to speak after the 90 minutes, we can choose to do so. But I'm just going to start with the 4 people who are signed up. We cannot run the clock on the screens during our committee meetings because the full computer system is up. So for the benefit of those speaking today, if you have a minute left, I'm going to wave 1 hand at you. If you have like 30 seconds left, I'm going to wave 2 hands at you. And that way people can kind of judge their time. It is awkward and it is like old school debate, but that's the best we can do for committee meetings. In order, if folks can line up, and I'm trying to read the handwriting and I am also really bad at pronouncing names, so apologies in advance. I'm going to read everybody so folks know when to line up. The first person is Simrath Road Hawa, I believe, and then Charles Robert Bone, and then Shazuri or Shazuni. Shani Glavenot, thank you. Sorry, I'm trying to read it. And then Lindsay Lee is the order of speakers today. Again, our first speaker, you are recognized.
Good afternoon. Let's be very clear about something. Nobody in Nashville wants this. Freddie O'Connell doesn't want it. The Metro Council doesn't want it. The voters certainly don't want it based off how they've repeatedly rejected every single tunnel bill emphatically. So what this is all about prioritizing one billionaire's personal enrichment over the interests of 700,000 people, circumventing democracy. That's what we're talking about. The Boring Company, some of the things they've said in the past, we've had 0 safety incidents and issues, 0 impact on water quality. So when they built this tunnel in Las Vegas, Within the first 2 years, over 800 environmental violations, fined over $500,000 for literally dumping drilling liquid into a Vegas sewer and then failing compliance. Zero quality issues. And then about that Vegas tunnel, when it was built, the boring company promised at least 90,000 passengers per hour. And that was when it would be done. 6 years later, never over 4,000 passengers at any point. They promised, 68 miles of the 68 miles of the tunnel, 104 stations. 6 years later, 3 miles, 8 stations. Sanctioning this, none of it is anywhere close to what's an acceptable standard for responsible governance. So I'm here to ask the committee, just do what every other city who the Boring Group has approached before does. Force accountability on a project where the entire project is built to try to avoid that every step possible. Because accepting anything less than that, it's a betrayal. It's a betrayal of public trust.
All right, thank you. Our next speaker, Charles Rubberbone, is recognized.
Good afternoon to the chair and members of the council. My name is Charles Robert Bone, currently serving as the managing director of Southwest Value Partners, the master developer of Nashville Yards. Make no mistake, my personal politics align with many of you, having hosted the Clintons and the Bidens in our home, along with James Taylor in support of and at the request of President Obama. Additionally, I've spent the entirety of my professional and civic life engaged in the growth, development, and hopefully the betterment of this city. I've been intimately involved in every major transit initiative in Nashville over the last 15 years, recently working with many of you and the mayor to lead the fundraising for the overwhelmingly successful Choose How You Move campaign. I understand that there have been frustrations about the process surrounding the Music City Loop, but if there are two lessons we've learned, it's these. First, we are decades behind in planning and improving our transportational infrastructure. And two, there is no single solution that's going to solve our transportation challenges. Voters sent a clear message in 2024 that when it comes to transit, we want options. This proposal does not eliminate the need for buses, sidewalks, bike lanes, or future corridor planning. If done right, this can supplement those, and together they can work together to truly make an impact. It is simply an additional option, privately financed, aimed at initially addressing one of our most persistent congestion points. From the Nashville Yards perspective, we have Nashville residents, tenants from dozens of local companies and businesses, and leadership and employees within our hotels, your constituents that are highly interested in knowing more about the Music City Loop. Throughout Nashville's history, we have succeeded when we have remained open to innovation. Over the coming months, this council will get to shape what additional phases of this project may look like, and I hope you give it fair consideration on its merit and grounded in facts, regardless of political divisions, frustrations, and disappointments. In today's environment, now more than ever, holding elected office is more difficult, but more needed. Thank you for your service, and thank you for your time.
All right. Shani Glapion, you're recognized.
Thank you. That's much better. Shani Glapion, a resident of Antioch, Tennessee. My handwriting is not bad, that bad at least.
It's not that bad.
So I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Yesterday, I went to the Airport Authority meeting. There were developers, real estate agents, all of it talking about tourism. Tourism. Where's the conversation that focuses on the residents? You're going to hear a number of those. I am opposed against this tunnel, this vanity project, and I'm going to yield my time. Hopefully somebody else can talk.
All right, thank you. Because we did not use all of that time, Jack Slagle will be recognized after Lindsay Lee. Ms. Lee, you're recognized.
Thank you. My name is Lindsay Lee. I'm a resident of the Midtown neighborhood. I'm also the chair of the Mayor's Advisory Committee for People with Disabilities. Almost 5 months ago, our Mayor's Advisory Committee executive leadership sent a letter to the Boring Company through the Mayor's office with a short set of questions about their plans to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act. We expected the answers to be readily available based on the fact that the Boring Company already has a fully operational tunnel in Vegas, However, despite repeated follow-up, we never received a response. These questions included, what percentage of vehicles operating in the tunnel will be wheelchair accessible? How will wait times and boarding processes compare between passengers with disabilities and those without? What are the specific emergency evacuation plans for passengers with disabilities? How will wheelchair users be able to exit the vehicle safely in an emergency, given how narrow the tunnel will be? What specific communication systems will exist for deaf and hard of hearing passengers during emergencies? And what wayfinding systems will be in place inside the tunnel for passengers who are blind or have low vision? Who will be responsible for the ongoing monitoring of the tunnel's ADA compliance? Now, a new question is added to the list. Why has the Boring Company not responded to these simple questions already? It would be difficult to not come to the conclusion from this silence that the Boring Company has no plans to comply with the ADA, settled law that has been on the books for 35 years, and that is fundamental to the equal opportunity and safety of people with disabilities and the quality of life of all people. I look forward to be proven wrong in this meeting and finally hearing answers to our questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And because you did not use all of your time, Mr. Slagle, you actually have right at 2 minutes, so you have the full amount of time.
Thank you all for your time. I'm just going to keep it quick. The Music City Loop is not the solution to the problems that you are seeing here. A private road tunnel is not a transit solution, is not the solution to the kinds of problems that we saw at B&A on September 15th. Further, if a tunnel could be the solution to this problem, you would not hire the Boring Company to dig that tunnel. They would be disqualified on the merits of their record in Las Vegas for the safety violations that have occurred, the environmental violations that have occurred. One of the Nevada legislators called it a scofflaw approach to regulations. Yesterday at the airport committee meeting, we heard a lot about the promises that have been made. I'm a former Tesla employee, and I will go ahead and tell you, they only make promises expecting that maybe you won't check up on it later. I say this out of my own personal experience. I'm a resident of the East Thompson community. This is not the transit solution that our community needs. We need more buses, we need more sidewalks, we need better transit corridors. I am pro-electric car, I am pro-transit, but this is not the way that we get to where we want to be. Thank you very much for your time.
We actually have a full minute left of public comment. If Emily Anspach would like to use that minute, she is welcome to do so. Because you only get a minute, I'm just going to wave once at 30 seconds.
Thank you. All right, I'm Emily. I'm in District 20. I want to start by saying our city is built on top of soft limestone, whose softness has formed the caves in our parks. I spent part of my childhood in Kentucky, where sinkholes regularly would swallow up construction projects, backyards, and even famously Corvettes. If above ground construction can trigger these sinkholes, what do you suppose happens if we drill a tunnel through a long stretch of our city in this same limestone? The Boring Company has said that the limestone is very hard. They assert that our ground has plenty of structural integrity and the project will take them only as long as Vegas, which is in soft soil. I don't think this is how it's going to go. With this difference, if we assume the project progresses at half the speed, we can expect their estimated cost to double. Remember that just recently, our local Shane Trucking did not get paid their promised payment for their labor, and they had to leave the construction of the hole. They didn't pay them for 120 days. They did not respond to their several OSHA violations.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, that's time. Thank you. All right, that ends our public comment period. Since it was mentioned, 10 out of 10 recommend a day trip to Bowling Green to see that Corvette in a hole. If everybody who would like to speak could raise their hand, I am going to start. Cool, Q. All right. Yeah, yes, ma'am. Councilman Porterfield.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to do a quick point of order. I believe you said that there were 3 people that signed up that didn't get to speak. 1 person got to speak half of the time. Will the committee vote to allow the other people to speak that signed up to speak? Was my question.
After the 90 minutes, as discussed at the beginning of the meeting, if we want to waive the rule at that point, we will, but we're going to use the time we have now to ask questions of the Boring Company, and then once they have been excused, then we can continue with that. I'm writing, so y'all just keep those hands up, okay? Oh, yeah, sorry. They're going to do their presentation, but y'all keep your hands up real quick since we've started this. Thank you for the reminder.
Okay.
That'll give me time to go through and find my committee members and all these hands. All right, y'all can put your hands down. Only one of you doesn't have their hands up, so. Okay, all right, we will now go to the presentation, which will be on the screen, and y'all's mics should be on, but.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, great. Well, thank you, Chair Evan Siegel, Vice Mayor Henderson, not sure is here, and members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. My name is David Buss, and I'm here representing the Boring Company. I've had the privilege to wear a number of hats, most important and relevant here being deeply involved in launching the Music City Loop for the Boring Company. I'm joined by my colleagues up here, Jim Fitzgerald, our Vice President of Business Development, Steve Schwartzbach, our General Counsel, and Nicholas Smith, our Director of Safety and Security. We're grateful for the opportunity to appear and discuss Music City Loop. In a moment, I'll be sharing an overview of the Boring Company and Music City Loop, focusing on our mission, our technology, our loop operations, and our processes for safety and environmental responsibility, and the amazing benefits of the system. We want you to see this and have a view of what this is, because I think there's been a lot of misinformation and misrepresentation. But before I jump in, it's important to say a few words on our approach to transparency and information sharing. We approach engagement and information sharing in two primary ways. One, we question and response posted on our website, and two, direct community engagement, including personal and small group meetings. This is ensured that those who want a detailed discussion on our project are afforded access, and that information is provided and available to all. We find that this direct and personal approach is often more effective than media interviews or appearances in more formal settings. We also recognize that this meeting is another opportunity for engagement, and we sincerely appreciate the chance to speak to you directly, and we understand that there have been a number of topics of interest raised about this project, and we welcome the opportunity to address those publicly and respectfully, and demonstrate our commitment to continued engagement with the members of this body. We understand that this is about public trust, and any use of public land must demonstrate public benefit, safety, and accountability. And we're confident we bring all of these with Music City Loop. Thus, we're committed to that standard, we're committed to transparency, we're committed to answering your questions directly, and we're committed to building trust, not just tunnels. And so with that, I want to give you a bit of a view in terms of visuals on the presentation for kind of who we are. Boring Company was founded to solve really an intractable engineering problem, which is providing a transportation solution in a three-dimensional way versus traditional solutions. So we have some of the best engineers on the planet trying to solve tunneling in a very real way that has not been available previously. Part of that is TBC is the only American boring company, boring machine manufacturer. And so the rest, there are only a couple in the world. We're the only ones that are producing them in the US. We have massive construction projects in Las Vegas. In fact, our Las Vegas project is the largest infrastructure project in the country right now. To give you some example of scale, it is roughly about 10 of the Nissan stadiums worth of concrete in terms of the size of the Vegas project. And our loop operations system is a unique transit architecture that allows us to move people around more efficiently and more effectively than a lot of existing transit solutions, or where you're tacking onto an existing architecture. We have the ability to move a large capacity of people in a very unique system. So I'll show you a little bit more about what that system looks like. So when we think about, so this video is an example of what our tunnels look like. And when I talk about loop, It is an express travel directly from where you board to your final destination. You don't stop at any stops along the way. It's a comfortable experience for transportation. So you travel privately with your party, people you know, in Tesla vehicles, and it is safe. It was awarded the DHS Gold Standard Award as the safest public transportation system assessed by the DHS. It is affordable, low fares. For example, trips to Vegas between Resorts World and the Convention Center are currently $4.25. For a day pass, it's $12. That is cheaper than the Vegas monorail system. It also has a large ability for capacity. This is an example of the system in operation during a convention. One of the benefits when I say express travel directly to your destination is you have a continuous throughput of travel, as you see on the outside main arteries of the tunnel, while people can enter into the vehicles without having to stop at intermediate stations. So you go from your destination to your destination, and with smaller vehicles and rides, you get people in and out much more quickly. It is also emissions-free with the vehicle, so very environmentally friendly and green solution. And with the capacity, when we're doing a large convention in Las Vegas, we're regularly transporting greater than 30,000 passengers in a day, which is the equivalent of the Baltimore light rail system. Also, I mentioned safety and security. This is intrinsic to everything we do at the Boring Company. We are operating vehicles that are some of the highest rated safety vehicles by the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, all 5-star rated vehicles, Tesla Model X's, Model Y's, and Cybertrucks. Lowest overall probability of injury of any vehicles ever tested by NHTSA. Our system was awarded through an extensive audit system, the DHS's Gold Standard Award by the Transportation Security Administration, with a 99.51% rating. Automatic wet standpipe systems for fire suppression run underneath our roadways. We have bidirectional redundant ventilation systems. Should there ever be an incident, we can control the ventilation within the tunnels with redundancy as well. We have direct communications within the tunnels, 24/7 operations, control centers and blue light stations, LTE cell phone service throughout. Oftentimes you'll get a better signal in the tunnel than you will outside of it. Secured Wi-Fi links, emergency communication systems directly tied into police and local fire departments. No third rails or touch hazards. Roadway is an incredibly safe egress. It is a 9.5-foot roadway that is fully illuminated with redundant lighting systems and zero touch hazards, unlike a subway system with that third rail. The highest rated CISA cybersecurity score. We have 100% camera monitoring throughout the entire system, including within the vehicles with our trained drivers, and recurring drills that we do in tabletop exercises with first responders regularly to make sure that we're fully in sync with what that response plan is. Move forward. When we came to Nashville with Music City Loop, Nashville was an exciting area for us. It was a growing dynamic city that is experiencing some of those pains that come with growth. It's been mentioned about some of the experiences of getting to BNA, and we actually present a very unique solution that can complement other transit solutions. The rock in Nashville actually is very hard, competent limestone. There, as evidenced by the numerous tunnels that have existed for decades under Nashville. And we think that this system will provide a large capacity benefit to the airport in the initial leg that was announced from the airport to downtown. We've subsequently announced that we will be going from West End to Lower Broadway, which experiences a significant amount of traffic as well. And so in total, this system is about 25 miles of tunnel. We'll have roughly about 30 stations along it. It is funded by us, so at no cost to taxpayers. And we're looking forward to getting started here, hopefully in Q1. when it is up and running, some of the times you see there is rough estimate on timing is about 10 minutes from the airport to downtown, and the entire west end of Riverfront, about 3 minutes in total time. So it is a pretty rapid system. When we compare that to Las Vegas began as a smaller project around the convention center. And that was to connect the different halls of the Las Vegas Convention Center at 1.7 miles. They actually had that and had us operate that for a year to prove efficacy of that system. And that grew to the surrounding resorts, and then a desire from Clark County and the city of Las Vegas to expand that system to 68 miles of tunnel and 104 stations. We have begun construction on a large portion of that. We will have a number of stations opening up in the next quarter, as well as the next year. And we're rapidly going to work through the remainder of what is the largest infrastructure project in the US with that 68 miles of tunnel. It is in that system, when it is actually fully up and running, we will be able to do greater than 90,000 passengers per hour in that system and several 100,000 passengers per day at maximum capacity. And general travel times in Las Vegas are within a couple of minutes. The longest travel time when you see on that map is about 8 minutes, and most of those rides are within 2 to 3 minutes. Part of the efficiency of the architecture of our transit system is that any one of those stations can go to any other station without having to stop at any intermediate station, unlike your typical subway or light rail systems where you add stations in between. So it allows for a high level of capacity and very fast throughput through it. We've put more than 3.5 million passengers through that system with 0 major safety or security incidents to date. And we have constructed more than 11 miles of tunnel of that system. We do so with a very, very high-minded focus on construction and environmental health and safety. So construction safety is critically important to us. We have a comprehensive health and safety training programs for all employees. All of our employees, regardless of your function, are OSHA 10 or OSHA 30 certified. We dedicate a full-time EHS staff on every single project, daily site inspections of all construction areas, continued development of what we call ZPIT, which is zero people in tunnel. We are investing heavily in R&D, which is to have automated surface control so that we can have workers on the surface and remove people from potentially hazardous environments. Underground emergency response services on standby for the duration of the project. Our environmental responsibility, all of our construction is done through the electric power grid, 0 emissions on TBMs and support equipment in the tunnel. We only introduce fully biodegradable materials into the process. We introduce 0 hazardous chemicals through that process. We have continuous excavation and water sampling, so the soil sampling and water sampling through lab analysis throughout the process. We have daily site environmental inspections on all construction areas. And before we begin construction, we enable a third-party environmental impact analysis, which we have done here in Nashville and published that on our website. And that showed a 0 to negligible negative impact and several positive impacts in removing emissions and congestion.
Just as a reminder, as y'all are changing your slides, we'd set aside 15 minutes for the presentation.
Okay.
And we can always email out the slides to everybody later, which we typically do anyway for all presentations. So if you're running quickly through them, they'll still get the information.
Okay, I have 2 more I should be able to get through in the 2 minutes I have remaining, if that's okay,
Yep.
Quinn? Okay, great, thank you. So in terms of some of the challenges and mitigations that have been brought up here that are unique to Nashville, is the karst and geotechnical variability here. This is actually very well known. This is a solved problem in tunneling. It is done through extensive geotechnical analysis. We have done numerous subsurface borings as well as different geophysical tests on this in the nature of hundreds. We have poured through hundreds of historical data borings, and we continue to do testing. In addition to that, as the machine moves along, we do probing ahead of the machine just in case you encounter any unexpected features. We handle flooding and high water and diverting water away from the system at all stations. And we manage water in a watertight system, as well as pump flow throughout the construction sites. We are deconflicted from utilities by being generally far below where utilities would be buried, but we also do extensive surveys on utilities before we begin tunneling. Additionally, before we ever began here in Music City Loop, we began engaging with the community. We had over 200 meetings prior to our announcement with different community and business leadership groups. We had met with the mayor's office and the state. And as we move forward with the state on this project, with the announcement, we began meeting regularly with the mayor's department heads and continue those meetings with weekly meetings with some of the mayor's staff. We've had a series of meetings with several of you individually, with the majority of the council. And we have put out for questions from both the public and the council members. We continue to ask for those questions, which we will publish online so that more people can have access to the potential answers. We have answered over 80 questions directly from the mayor's office and several dozen more from community members we've received. We do bi-monthly blog posts so that we can give project updates on where we're at. We've done a 1.5 hour X-Space conversation and continue with a high level of community engagement with charitable organizations, hospital organizations, business organizations, and want to continue that level of engagement, as well as being here in front of all of you and continuing that engagement. So I think we can stop it there and move to Q&A. Hopefully I hit time relatively well.
I'm just going to round to 60 because that's what I did my math on. So apologies for rounding up. And we have 25 people in the queue. Do we now have 26 people in the queue? Councilmember Vo, do you want to be in the queue? Okay. I had done my math, but let's see here. So with 26 people in the queue, that means everybody gets 2 minutes and 19 seconds. All right. Yes, that does include answers. So this is going to be an exercise in quick question asking, but that is what we have available to us. So the first person in the queue will be the vice chair. Ms. Ewing, you are recognized. Oh, yes.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, I will attempt to be pithy. All right. First of all, since I have such limited time, I want to secure your commitment to answering the questions posed by the Mayor's Advisory Committee on People with Disabilities. They have an extensive list of questions. They are critical to the safety and equitable treatment of that community. And as you might not know, a quarter of the population is constitutes a person with disabilities of some type or another. So they are part of the population that would use this service.
Yeah. Thank you for that question, Council Member. We want more people to use this system, including people that require accessibility support. And our system is ADA compliant. We have accessibility options for people with mobility concerns, with sight impairment, with hearing impairment. We train our drivers and our emergency response teams on this. We want more people to use this. We think this is a fantastic system for everybody. And so accessibility is incredibly important to us across the board.
Okay, if you could please commit to looking at their full list of questions and publishing the answers on your website, I'd be really grateful.
We'll certainly take a look at the full list of questions. And do our best to review those and get back to you in answers on those.
Okay, because the answers are quite critical for that community.
Certainly.
Next, I'd like to address your waste disposal procedures. I want to find out, with the work that you've already done adjacent to First Baptist Church, Capitol Hill, what happened to that waste? Where did you dispose of that waste?
For what has happened at what we call Lot 16?
I guess
okay.
if that's
Yeah,
what
the
it's
state Lot
called, then
16.
yes.
Yeah. So we follow all necessary procedures and permitting for all waste disposal. I don't know off the top of my head what site that was disposed at. When we look at materials coming out of the tunnel or in that process, we always follow all necessary permit and regulations in testing that is required before it is disposed of. And in many cases, as we're tunneling, there can be use made of that material. In our lease agreement with the state, they have a first right of refusal for use of that material, but we're open if there's another use of it and it's environmentally safe for it to be used elsewhere as well.
Okay, if we could
I'm
get.
Sorry, if we want, they have also made themselves available for written questions. So if you will
Excellent.
just submit whatever follow-up written questions you have, and they have committed to answering those, so we
Okay.
can handle
Thank
that
you.
that way.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is it possible to see some examples of the water analysis that you've done in Las Vegas?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Nick Smith here is our safety and security director, and he actually has been very involved in that. And Nick, maybe I'll hand that to you.
Yeah, we absolutely can provide that. We do comprehensive testing depending upon the requirement that we're looking to meet. For example, in Las Vegas, we test against NIPD's.
Pull that closer.
Oh, sorry, ma'am. We test against NIPD's analytes, as well as if also for a TNS permit, whether it's going to be used for dust control. Sometimes those are variances. Frequency of testing also varies. We stay fully compliant with that. I am responsible for that documentation, and we certainly have it.
And you commit to getting all the permits in place ahead of time here in Nashville?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome, that's on the
yes.
record. And then secondly, is it, I found the environmental impact statement on the website, so I'm going to read through that later, not take time on that one. Can you talk a little bit about how this can complement the Choose How You Move Better transit system that the citizens of this city overwhelmingly voted in support of?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that question too. It's a big reason why we chose Nashville is the commitment to transit solutions. I think the forward-thinking commitment to transit solutions. We are excited to actually be another solution. I think across the board, when you see a growing dynamic city, there's no one-size-fits-all solution out there. And oftentimes, those solutions have different levels of ability to remove congestion from the roads. They can also tie into hubs together. We would love to work closely with the Choose How You Move initiative with some of the WeGo buses and other solutions across the city to tie in and make sure that you can actually have a much more comprehensive model and an overall solution to that, and we can be a part of that solution. So absolutely something we would love to tie into, and we do that regularly with Las Vegas with the monorail system, as well as other transit hubs.
You have 30 seconds. We're going to get.
Can you respond to the statement that was made about 800 safety violations in Las Vegas?
Yeah.
Sure. So so those violations relate to water. That is an open investigation, so we're limited in what we can say about it. I'll let Nick say a couple words about the substance of the claims or the alleged violations to give some context around what that really means.
Yeah. So appreciate the question. Of the 800, it's 790 alleged violations. Alleged is important there. Of the 600 or 790, 689 of them are a paperwork concern. It is not an environmental infraction that they are being cited for. It is a documentation for an inspection that occurred, not a negative finding from an inspection. So that's important context there. We are working closely with the Nevada Department of Environmental Protection to resolve this issue, and we are certainly hoping to resolve it shortly.
And these investigations are public records, so, they'll be published and made publicly available at the appropriate time.
And note that is hundreds and hundreds. We have had well over 1,000 inspections in that. And of those 1,000 inspections in these paperwork violations, so that is every site is inspected with regularity. And so when you multiply that by paperwork, that's how you get to that, large number.
Councilmember Hill, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. First, I want to apologize because I assure you there is not a single person in this room that despises the owner of this company more than I do. His stance of the trans community, especially his own trans daughter. But instead of asking you a bunch of questions, I'm going to make a long statement, and then I'm just going to let you answer at the end of it whether you believe I'm right or wrong. We have numerous tunnels in Davidson County because we have good rock. Our oldest one is DES. It was put in 1974. That's really not that far from the Cumberland River, and they've not ever had any trouble with flooding or collapses or anything like that. It's built directly in front of a bunch of really old buildings. Bellevue has one in between Sawyer Brown and Old Boulevard by Harpeth Valley Water Utilities. NES has one that goes from 2nd Avenue towards downtown. That's a 10.5 rock board tunnel. I know, I've been in it. I actually ran the machine for a while. I know that Metro Water has one, and DES got one. Vanderbilt has 3. Its oldest is put in 86. I know that I was assistant project manager over 2 of the tunnels in Vanderbilt, and people have made comments about sinkholes and water and all kind of things like that. And it's been my experience that the problems that we ran into, you just back the machine up, you attack it from the above, and you fill it full of grout, you go through it, and then you support it all the way around. And it works just like middle school geometry. It all pushes together and it holds itself there. A short story about Vanderbilt Children's Hospital tunnel during the May 2010 flood. That tunnel completely flooded in a matter of a few minutes, and it saved the Children's Hospital from flooding. Sadly, I couldn't get my men to get the steam line off fast enough.
You have 1 minute. This is the 1 minute. This is
Okay.
the 30 seconds.
We couldn't get the steam lines off fast enough before it did, and it heated the water up hot enough that it actually melted every single light fixture in the entire tunnel, all 4,600 feet of it. And then what we did is we pumped the water back down. We replaced the electrical fixtures. We turned the steam on slow to dry out the insulation. And then we went back in service, and we've never had any issues. I was the project manager over the tunnel when we dug the tunnel right beside that, and we didn't have any trouble at all. So
in terms of agreement with your statement on tunneling, 100%, I think you highlight Nashville is a fantastic place to tunnel, as evidenced by the tunnels that exist here. The competent rock is significant throughout Nashville. It's a great place to do tunneling, and it's actually technically far less difficult in terms of the problems that you outline in solutions to tunneling. There are very solved problems that are very normal to tunneling. In fact, in Las Vegas or in Texas, in some of the areas that we've gone, and we've gone obviously in important areas when you go underneath Las Vegas Boulevard in the Strip, or we've gone under a 6-lane highway in Texas, where you have much deeper settlement issues that you have to deal with in loose soil that you don't have to deal with as extensively in that competent rock. And even there, given the structure of our tunnels, we have experienced little to no settlement, less than a 1/10 of an inch, which is just in the wash. But we do regularly monitor that at all areas, and to the geotechnical and the probing and all of those, we do extensive research before we advance the machine in any direction. And then, as you noted, Councilmember Hill, there's significant mitigations you can have if you do run into any situations.
Do I have any time left for 10-second time?
No, we'll circle back to everybody after they're left if folks want to comment or ask questions. But again, you can submit it. And I would like to thank Special Counsel, who's going to hold up 30-second and 1-minute signs so that we don't have to wave at y'all, so that y'all can know how much time you have left. All right. So those will be at the 119 mark and the 150 mark, if just in case you need the math. Next in the queue is Councilmember Parker. Oh, Yes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank y'all for being here. So in your presentation, you said that y'all use zero hazardous chemicals in the construction process. Do you use Master Rock AGA 41S?
I'm not familiar with that specific one. I'm certainly not an engineer in that capacity. So I'd have to look into that. If you can submit that to us, I'd be happy to look into that.
Okay, a couple of industry publications speculated that y'all were using that. And if not, do you know what chemical caused the burn injuries for the firefighters in that incident?
I'll defer. It sounds like.
I can answer your first question if you'd like me to. Master Rock is a brand name for what is commonly referred to in the mining industry as an accelerant. Accelerant is not as in accelerant as in flammable, but accelerates the cure time of concrete or the cure time of grout. So when we're talking about grout is there's an annulus space when you build tunnels, and you fill that annulus space. It stabilizes tunnels, it also waterproofs tunnels. It's built with common construction materials like bentonite, fly ash, and Portland cement. It also uses, Master Rock can be one of them. You can also use other brands of accelerant. But yes, we do those as a part of a concrete mix that is the same in any industrial project, is going to use some form of accelerant
And that
to accelerate cure time.
can cause skin burns, is that correct? If exposed?
Every component of concrete can cause skin burns.
Okay, so zero hazardous chemicals.
It's considered a caustic.
Thank you, sir. I have one more question with my time. So in August of this year, there was an incident, there was an anonymous complaint about illicit discharge into the Clark County wastewater system. An inspector went out and talked with Supervisor Filippo Fazzino. I might be getting that wrong. And after the inspector appeared to have left, Filippo apparently just reconnected the system to the wastewater discharge, believing the inspector had gone. The inspector had not gone, so the inspector went back, and y'all acknowledged that incident in a letter to the Clark County wastewater system. So my question for you is that gentleman still employed by Boring Company, who reconnected the system after the inspector told him to disconnect it?
We did an internal investigation in that, and as you noted, we admitted that there were some poor decisions made on the site there. We're not at liberty to discuss, an internal employee issue directly with this council. But what I can say is it was thoroughly investigated and thoroughly resolved with the Clark County waste disposal.
Important clarification there. The reconnection of that hose was a miscommunication via a member of our construction staff. It was not the gentleman that you were referencing. And no water was discharged post that reconnection. It was reconnected. The inspector saw it reconnected. It was disconnected and nothing flowed through that pipe post that. And that was our response. I just wanted to provide some context there.
I also think it is worth noting, too, that the entirety of our Las Vegas project is underwater. A lot of people don't understand that underneath the water table is about 8 to 12 feet, and the entirety of it is under there. We're regularly dealing with water. In this case, there was a mistaken communication, which we then made right as quickly as possible. But we are very, very proud of our construction record in Las Vegas. And I think it stands up, given that 7 years of construction, we have had very, very few incidents like these in dealing with water.
Great. Councilmember Cash, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate y'all being here and speaking to us and answering questions in a public setting. And I also appreciate in your introduction, you used the words committed to build trust. I think this is a good first step in a public way to build that trust. And my main question is, like, what does that look like going forward to you? I mean, there's still, as you can tell, we've been talking about this for months, and there's still a good amount of opposition. There's still a good amount of skepticism. Some of it's political. Some of it's kind of for other reasons, or macro-political versus micro-political. So what can you do publicly to build that trust? And also kind of related to that, is it your intention, or will you commit to kind of like defining one project, doing that project and showing that it can work, get it running and showing that it can work before you start expanding the number of projects? Those are my questions. Thanks.
No, thank you for that question. I think part of being here is a big piece of that engagement. I don't think that we would say that this is the first step to engagement. I think is demonstrated in our presentation. We have engaged very regularly with the public. This is a good example of that, but not the only example of it. We are willing to post things publicly. We're willing to have public discussions. And we want to continue that engagement and build that public trust across, not just with this council and representing and respecting the position that this council represents in representing your constituents and the people of Nashville, but in other avenues as well. And we want to maintain that and have as many open dialogues as we possibly can through as many different avenues of that. Engagement does mean maybe some different things to us than it does to others, but we absolutely want to have a very high level of open engagement and transparency in what we do and give people an idea of what we're doing in this project. We're excited about this project. We think it is a tremendous benefit, and we think that is demonstrated by the project that we have in Las Vegas and other areas. So I think the second part of your question too, of are we committed to demonstrating pieces of a project? We have a functioning system there in Las Vegas that is being built out, that is a massive infrastructure project. And we already operate large pieces of that. So we are operating, we are doing 3.5 million passengers have gone through that system with a fantastic experience. It's already solving a lot of solutions there from a congestion problem. And we think that, we want to open up as many legs as possible within Nashville as soon as possible. I think, it's only to the benefit. So I think as things come online, we're intending to open them up and demonstrate the benefits of this, and hopefully that it gets even more resounding support.
Thanks. If I could just quickly add, like by public, I mean where, everybody can hear and see what the answers are.
Thank you, Councilmember Cash. Councilmember Coopin, you're right. Yes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the representatives from the company for being here and being transparent with us. I think that's really important. Others have spoken on the disability access. That's something that's really important to me. I've got family members that are in wheelchairs, and so appreciate y'all working on that. I know others are going to dive deeper into it. Couple quick questions. First of all, electric vehicle fires we've seen on the news where Teslas have exploded or caught fire or things like that. How do you address that in the tunnel?
Yeah, a fantastic question, and this leads to some misperceptions out there, and some ones that I think maybe we can clear up. Lithium-ion battery fires obviously are a very scary thing. Their incidence and potential for happening in our tunnel system is very low. I am certainly not going to be the world's expert on it, and I may defer to Nick if I don't answer this completely, but in general, most of those happen in instances of charging incidents in which the cars are not in a charging function, and in incidents of head-on collisions where our tunnels are single direction. You're not going to have that where you're running into a right angle or another car. If there were ever an incident, and thankfully with millions of passengers passing through our Las Vegas system, we have not had a single incident. If there were, we have multiple redundant safety systems to handle a fire and to actually be able to not only safely evacuate people, but to allow for firefighters and first responders to come into it. Nick, you might want to explain exactly what those are in a higher level of detail.
Yeah, and I would encourage everyone not to just take our word for it, to do their own research as well. The frequency of lithium-ion battery fires in Teslas, the actual frequency, and then it would be interesting if you want to, again, to do your own research and compare that to the frequency of ICE vehicles, internal combustion. You will find that an internal combustion engine car is considerably more likely to experience a fire and event. There are two main ways, as David alluded to, where a lithium-ion battery fire, specifically in a Tesla, could occur. One is through a charging malfunction. There are zero charging done by the boring company in the Vegas Loop or in the Nashville Loop that are conducted underground. We do not do it. We will not do it. The second is catastrophic damage to the battery pack. The fact that we do not have bidirectional traffic, we do one-lane tunnels, that eliminates a lot of that hazard. The fact that the tunnel itself does not have internal touch points on it, if you were to hit the walls of the tunnel, to use a common example, I say it's like bowling with the bumpers up, right? It's gonna hit the wall. It's not a direct impact where the vehicle is gonna come to an immediate stop. So that's even further reducing the risk of that. Now, with that said, we need to prepare for the event that it does happen. We utilize that through underground standpipes that we use throughout the roadway. Every 160 feet, there is a direct fire hose valve connection for first responders. We have redundant bidirectional ventilation systems that create clean air environments. So first responders and the people that would be evacuating the tunnel are evacuating from a clean air environment. We have the ability to change directions with those. We have spent an incredible amount of time thinking about this event. We are incredibly confident on our response with it as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Spain, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all for being here. I wanted to first ask about permitting. In your February 1 blog post, you said that there are 45 permits and approvals required for this project. 37 of them required to actually begin construction, and at that point there were 32 secured and 5 under review. I assume one of those was the one with the Airport Authority. Can you give us an update on how many are secured, how many are still under review, and of those, of both categories, how many are from Metro departments or agencies?
Yeah, great question. I don't have the full list in front of me of what permits are out there. I believe we've secured 37 and we have 5 remaining. So I think the numbers are maybe a little bit off. I could be off on that. I will have to get back to you on the exact ones that we have. But as you've noted, it's a fairly extensive review process across the board with both state and metro authorities. We are hopefully nearly there in securing all of those and going through the diligence, but it is definitely not something where it has been an easy rubber stamp or just push through. There's a lot of diligence and scrutiny going into these permits and making sure that we're pursuing all of the right processes. And none of these are different than any other construction project. So these are very normal to the project itself.
Okay, thank you for that. I know one of the ones still under review is the big TDOT permit. Does that one include any sort of environmental review? Do you know?
Absolutely, it does. So that is part of their process, is an extensive environmental review, and that also is reviewed by federal highway authorities as well. And so that is in final stages of review and process, and we're excited to have that done. And that is extensive documentation has gone into that.
If federal highways involved, does that include a NEPA review?
It does not.
Yep. If I have time, one more quick one on power. One of the impediments to all electric transit systems anywhere is the amount of power required to run them and what happens if the power goes out, which we've all seen firsthand recently that can happen.
Sure.
Have you had conversations with NES about can they support this system and what happens if the power goes out?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had extensive conversations with NES. We work closely with NES in their systems. We are operating in any capacity with redundant power systems. And we generally have redundant power systems across the board in any system operation. If there were some massive catastrophic failure in it, we would not operate a system in any unsafe environment if that were the case. But we generally plan for redundancy and plan for contingency on it. An additional benefit that we have even looked at too is we run power through conduit underneath some of our roadways internally, and there's ability to actually run utilities underneath the roadway.
All right, good. Councilmember Ellis, you're recognized.
Thank you. Question. Prior to the July 16th, 2024 ballot initiative that was passed, the language for that here on the council floor, who in the mayor's office had you met with in person?
I'm sorry, the July 16th ballot initiative, I'm not familiar with that ballot initiative.
I'm sorry. Were you aware of the Choose How You Move initiative prior to The reference that you made on your website with meeting with local and state officials in March of 2024?
Yeah, so I may hand that over to Jim Fitzgerald, who was the part of the initial discussions with the mayor's office as well as the
And I was late, so if you guys could just identify your title with the company?
Certainly. I'm David Buss. I am Vice President of Commercial and Government Affairs, and this is Jim Fitzgerald.
Yes, good evening. My name is Jim Fitzgerald, the Global Vice President of Business Development. So prior to the, I believe you said it was the July 2024 discussions here, as we've been public about, the conversations began here in Nashville actually in March of 2024. And the representatives from the mayor's office that we met with, or that we were essentially asked to be our primary point of contact.
I'm sorry, I was asking specifically who in the mayor's office did you meet with?
Yep.
If you could be brief with your answers.
Yep, senior advisor and the former chief development officer who is no longer with the mayor's staff.
Okay, and as I understand it from the open records request, you all met in person?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great.
Okay,
thank you. Final question. What are the anticipated surface level road closures and detours on Murfreesboro Pike? And how will you all ensure that the tunnel construction does not delay or conflict with the Choose How You Move improvements that the voters in my district have already approved?
Yeah, we have no planned road closures. Part of the benefits of our system is we should have very little to no surface disruption, and so we have no planned road closures or disruption on the roadways for Murfreesboro Pike. And I cannot speak to any of the other areas of Choose How You Move. We hope this complements the system and allows them to build it out as they see fit. But we haven't been in discussions about how this conflicts or complements it yet. We would love to have those discussions.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Suara, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I keep crossing out my question as everybody keep asking. So the first question I wanted to ask you is, how much money are you guys going to make from this deal?
It's an interesting question, and it's not one that has an easy answer to it.
So let me phrase it this way. I know you may not be able to give me an exact amount, but are you going to make money from this project?
Absolutely. We're putting a significant amount of money and investment at risk. In fact, we've said we are putting hundreds of millions of dollars to build what the market equivalent would be of billions of dollars of infrastructure in tunnel systems into this system. We anticipate a large investment over time and a commitment to Nashville because of that level of investment, with the intent that it does actually have a positive return.
Okay. The reason why I keep asking is the statement about this is for the taxpayer, no cost to taxpayer. It gives the intention that this is for our benefit only, but it's actually for the company's bottom line as well. So I think that's very important. And the fact that there's no taxpayer dollars, I think I saw it on the slide, is also misleading because you're using public land. And so when we're talking about building trust, I think making sure that what we're putting out there, it's the complete truth, I think will help with that trust. The question that I wanted to ask, I got a couple of questions, oh my God, but one is about small transportation venture businesses, taxi drivers, people that are already running the route to the airport. How does this affect their business? And then the second thing is you have community engagements. Which communities did you talk to? Because is it just businesses? What about the people that reside on Murfreesboro Road, the immigrant community? Can you give a list of the communities that you actually spoke to about this?
Yeah, so let me see if I can answer some of those questions as they come up. In terms of some of the other rider options, we believe this is a good complement and allows people to choose a different option. And I can't talk specifically of how it's going to impact each one. We think this is a fantastic solution that can allow people to choose whether they want to ride our loop system, whether they want to ride a taxi, whether they want to ride a bus system. We think that this is, again, one of the many multivariate solutions that is going to help solve congestion in there. And then to
Communities.
Thank you. And in talking with communities, that has been broad-based. I think it would be far too numerous to just name specifics, nor do I have a list in front of me, but it has been everything in hundreds of conversations, certainly not just the business community, although there's a significant interest from the business community. We have talked to individual residents. We have met with charities. We have talked with church organizations. We have talked with different residents along not only the routes we're in, but across all of Nashville. We have worked extensively with charity organizations through that hospital systems. We have tried to be very broad-based in our outreach.
Oh, Councilmember, I'm sorry, your time is up, but please do submit that in a written question.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Councilmember Porterfield, you're recognized.
Thank you so very much. I have a lot of questions, so I'm going to be really quick. Mr. Fitzgerald, thank you so much for showing up, especially after not responding back to that email when y'all were asked to come back in August. Appreciate you coming here today. For the sake of transparency, you all mentioned that y'all want to build trust. Can I just get a nod from the mayor's office as a yes or no? Are y'all meeting with the Boring Company weekly? That was a no. Thank you for saying that. Next, y'all mentioned that the machines that y'all are using are made here in the USA. Did I hear that correctly, that the machines are made here in the USA?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I just got an email from one of my constituents who's out in the audience with a public records request from U.S. Customs that shows you all importing used TBM machines from Austria within the last 2 months. So I would love if we, in the spirit of building trust, if we can make sure that we're being honest about what we're saying. You're telling us that the machines are built here, but then we're getting a public records request saying that the machines were built somewhere else. The next question that I have is who's going to have access to this underground surveillance system? You just showed us video footage of that surveillance system in Las Vegas. So who's going to have access to that surveillance system? And what happens if federal or state law enforcement agencies request footage? My last question, since I don't have that much, last two questions, I don't have that much time. Was there an RFP or an RFQ put out? Typically, when we're talking about doing business with people, we want to make sure that there are RFPs or RFQs that are put out so other entities have the opportunity to engage. Did that process happen? And then lastly, the over 200 community groups, that's really interesting. None of the community groups that I work with or that I've heard from have had any level of engagement. I appreciate y'all coming here today. This appears to be the first public opportunity for our constituents to engage with you all, for us to get some questions out on the record. So I'm having a hard time figuring out who are the 200 community groups that y'all are working with, and I'll reserve my last 30 seconds.
Okay. I will try to get through some of that as quickly as possible. There was a lot there. I tried to write down notes on that. As part of an R&D environment, we're regularly looking at parts from different competing tunnel boring machine manufacturers, as well as different areas where they can satisfy different features that we're adding to our machines. But we do produce in Bastrop, Texas, which is our headquarters, tunnel boring machines. It is the only tunnel boring machine manufacturer in the USA, and that is where our machines are manufactured. In terms of underground monitoring and footage requests, Nick, as part of, or Steve, do you want to?
Yeah, surveillance footage is private. If we receive a valid subpoena from law enforcement or really any court that would have jurisdiction, then we would be obligated under law to provide it.
Okay, and then the RFP, given that this is a privately funded project and required no public funds, there was no RFP request, and we have unique capabilities to do that. And the over 200 community groups, I think Councilmember Suara, you mentioned that we're going to follow up with some of those out there as extensively as we can, but we're regularly out in the community.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. The time includes the answers. Councilmember Kimbrough, you are recognized.
Thank you. I wanted to follow up on the initial question. I believe it was the very first question because I didn't get clarity regarding where your discarded materials or waste, where they have gone and where they are going. Could you give me some?
Yeah, so I don't have in front of me exactly where the initial materials from that lot were disposed of. I do know that they went through the requisite processes for permitting and dumping. where it is. In terms of the materials that will come out of the tunnel, and we can get back to you with where that is. You know, I don't have the exact locations. But in terms of the materials coming out of the tunnel, we follow all permitting and dumping procedures. If they're dumped, if they can be of use, we would love them to be of use. A lot of this material, the rock coming out, can be great for fill materials or building materials. The state, when it's under state right-of-way, has first right of refusal. We do not sell the material or make a profit out of this material in any way, shape, or form. We follow, like I said, all.
I don't have, let me just say, who do I need to ask? Who would know?
We can get back to you with that. Yeah.
Okay. And then let me just ask you this, since I have a little time. Sure. Because you haven't done a lot of community engagement, and I represent a very large number of minorities. We're really diverse. But over the years, we have been dumped on. We have the dump, and that's one of the reasons for my question. And now people just come dump all over and leave. Would you commit to coming out to my community?
I would,
just so we can talk to you. As
I
one
would
of your
love to.
stops,
I would love to come out.
so
to
I can talk to you today and we'll set something up.
Absolutely. I would love to, and hopefully all of you have my email and response, and I'd be more than happy to set up meetings. I would love to come out to your community. Also, when we talk about community engagement in organizations, I would love to understand what's important to your constituents and how we can engage with them. So please feel free to send us.
Thank you.
Councilmember Toombs, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Just two questions. You talked about the Music City Loop is supposed to just go through state right-of-way. However, will it be necessary to have any easements on private property, or is it just straight state right-of-way the entire?
So the tunnel system itself is primarily under state right-of-way. We do work out private easements adjacent to that state right-of-way. And those are private discussions with private entities to have stations. So as it functions, when you see kind of the map of Las Vegas or that, and where we said we will have 30 stations in Nashville, the benefit of this is we actually want more stations in it. It's more efficient for people. It's more effective. It's actually more accessible and mobility solutions for communities. So we will work out a series of private easements with those, and those will be private contracts.
Do you anticipate that being residential or commercial property for those private easements?
I think generally it would be commercial properties you'd look at.
All right, last question. You talked about the tunnel, and let's say you had a catastrophic event where, you know, the tunnel is flooded and you got to get that water out. Where's the water going to?
After it comes out of the tunnel?
Yes,
when it's pumped out?
Pump it out of the tunnel.
Nick, you look like you want to answer that.
Yeah, so we have to prepare for this. So in all of our tunnels, we refer to them as low spots of the tunnel where the water would collect. There will be underground sump pumps that have a PVC piping that would lead out to the surface. And then prior to that water going anywhere, because we would assume this is groundwater, this is rainwater, or hydrant water, we would secure the necessary permit for that water to be discharged in the necessary place for this region. I say region as in the rules in Las Vegas are not the same as the rules here in Tennessee, but we are committed that we will ensure that we have the permits for those set in place for the tunnels for that eventuality if water were to get in there.
Really quickly, if there was a flood event, like a massive flood, like our 2010 flood, and if you're pumping water, like, what's the procedure? Are you waiting for the water to come down some before you pump it out of the tunnel? Because in my non-engineer mind, if you're pumping water out of the tunnel, it's got to go somewhere and it's making the flooding worse.
Yeah, understood. I think I misunderstood your question. Yeah, in a catastrophic sort of flood event, we would essentially be in the same, maybe a bad term, the same boat as everyone else. If the entire city's flooded and we are also flooded, we are going to have to figure out where do we pump this water and where we get it out. I'm not going to tell you that we have some magical solution because it doesn't exist, right? We'd be in the same boat as the rest of the city, and hopefully working collaboratively to figure out a solution.
And also when, right? So we would work very closely with city officials, with first responders, with others in the utilities district in it to make sure that we're doing it appropriately and in conjunction with them.
Councilmember Cortez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to run through 4 questions quickly. Given that this project would utilize public infrastructure and support, would you commit to a revenue sharing structure such as dedicating a percentage of each fare to help offset taxpayer burden and ensure the public receives a direct financial return on its investment? 2, this would require a significant commitment from public assets and long-term public trust. One of my primary priorities is ensuring that appropriate safeguards are in place to protect residents' investments and guarantee continuity of service. Public infrastructure should never be influenced by personal grievances. No one should have to worry that criticizing the company, its leadership, or its policies could jeopardize their access to essential infrastructure. My understanding is the Lee administration did not even breach this question for consumer protections. Would you commit to resident protections that prevent service disruption and termination due to private business disputes or lawful competition, protection against service disruption or termination or retaliation related to speech, and ensure continuity of operations in the event that ownership changes, restructuring, or other corporate decisions? Question 3, if this project moves forward, residents need confidence that their health, water, air, and neighborhoods will be protected. What enforceable safeguards would you agree to include in your agreement with Metro? And would you commit to establishing a per-fare contribution toward a locally controlled contingency fund to address any environmental impacts without shifting costs onto taxpayers? And 4, are riders' identities tracked in the system? If so, how long is that information held? And is that rider information ever sold or used for any source outside of the company?
Okay.
I threw a lot at you.
So this isn't the appropriate forum to make any sort of commitment with respect to revenue sharing or anything else.
I won't be mad if you do. It's fine.
No, but
Although I will say, there's going to be significant revenue generated from the economic activity, the jobs that are going to be created from this. Whether we're, as Steve noted, we're not going to commit to a structure in this forum. We're open to discussions about all sorts of different avenues and how we work with the city. But we do see this as a significant overall net economic benefit.
Yeah, and maybe one thing that's important to point out is we're going to be a Tennessee business subject to Tennessee tax laws. We don't have any special tax treatment here. So we are going to pay into the same taxes as anybody else who's doing business in this state. And that would kind of be for the benefit of everyone.
It is, but would you be open to revenue sharing as well?
Like I said, we can't make any sort of financial commitments right now. Do you want to talk
about dispute resolution or denial of service?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you want to?
No, go for it.
Okay.
Yeah, so we, from a safety perspective, we would only deny service on the basis of safety.
That's right.
Yeah, and we actively monitor for firearms, rowdy behavior, Nick, is there?
Yeah, public intoxication where there be some safety concern and behavior on that. We don't screen for any sort of ideological restriction on that. Similarly, I'm probably skipping to your 4th question, rider identity, we do not sell ridership data.
I guess define as in the names of individuals, or we certainly track passenger counts.
That would be very helpful.
I think, we can email those questions. Councilmember Catt, you're recognized.
Thank you. You say that you want to build trust and be transparent. It's not productive of trust or transparency to limit the timing of questions in the way that you have. It's not productive of trust or transparency to try to fob our questions off into emails that the public will not see. It's not productive of trust or transparency for so many of my colleagues who have asked you direct questions that you've given indirect answers to. For those reasons, I'm going to ask you a series of yes or no questions. I'm looking for yes or no answers, but I'm going to give you an opportunity to show one step toward genuine engagement with the people of Nashville. My first question, yes or no, is will you commit to extend the time of this meeting until every council member has all of their questions answered?
We had an agreement.
Yes or no? I'm looking for a yes or no.
I would.
Time out. This is an inappropriate line of questioning here.
No, you can answer just with yes or no. If you're not willing to stay past 90 minutes, and
we had a commitment made ahead of this meeting to a time commitment, and we're going to stick to that time commitment.
So that's a no, and I'd like my time back for the time they spent filibustering that answer. Next question, yes or no. Does the boring company believe that it needs permission from Metro Nashville to dig beneath intersections where a Metro street crosses a state route?
We will follow all relevant
Yes or no?
permits needed.
Yes or no? Do you believe you have the authority to do that without permission from Metro Nashville?
No response. This is subject to applicable law. We're trying to be productive with this conversation, please.
Do you believe you can tunnel underneath intersections that Metro controls without Metro's permission?
If it's required under applicable law, we have committed to complying with applicable law. Yes.
Does the boring company believe, yes or no, that it needs permission from Nashville to dig beneath or around utilities owned and operated by Metro Nashville?
Same answer.
Yeah, again, if we're operating in an area that would require Metro approval, then we would need to get that approval.
So that's a yes. I'm looking for yes or no answers to these questions. Does the boring company believe that it needs permission from Nashville to dig beneath or through sewer lines owned and operated by Metro Nashville?
That would be the same response.
Does the boring company acknowledge that in Tennessee there is strict liability for anyone who causes erosion or subsidence or a sinkhole on a neighboring property?
Subject to applicable law.
Do you acknowledge that that's the law in Tennessee? Yes or no?
We acknowledge that we will comply with the law of Tennessee and any other applicable law.
Do you acknowledge that there's strict liability for structural damage caused to a building on a neighboring property? A building, sorry.
Same response. We will comply with applicable law.
This is a yes or no question. Does the boring company believe that it needs statutory authority in general to dig beneath Nashville? Yes or no, please?
We will conduct our business in accordance with applicable law.
Have you reviewed the relevant statutes, and do you believe that you need statutory authority to dig beneath Nashville?
I don't believe that we would be able to obtain the permits that are required, our license to operate, if we're outside of the of applicable law or any.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. I was
No,
going to
no,
say.
yep, and any statutory requirements.
Councilmember, you're out of time. Councilmember Hancock, you're recognized.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate you coming in front of us. And I heard you talk about the percent underwater in Las Vegas. How much of this project would be underwater?
Anticipating it being very little in terms of the amount of water leakage in competent rock is minimal. We're going to avoid significant water pockets. Those can sometimes come up if you're not, unexpectedly, but we are generally doing all of the geotechnical analysis so that we're not. So we see very little water seepage in competent rock.
And similar to Uber and Lyft, are the drivers going to have to buy their own Teslas and charge them on their own dime?
No, these are all our cars. They are maintained by us, regularly maintained. We keep Tesla mechanics on hand for this. The drivers are our employees. They are not gig workers. They are a wonderful part of our organization that we believe are, in very satisfied jobs with this. And so they are not part-time employees that are using their own vehicles.
Do you have part-time and full-time employees with benefits?
Yes.
And how does an underground system perform during an extreme weather event like the ice storm that we had a few weeks ago?
The short answer is it is generally unaffected by surface conditions, which allows it to maintain operation and opening. So you're not going to have ice that is going to flow into the system. That's going to be a surface event. Surface weather events are not conflicted with the tunnel system. So it can maintain operation and it can actually get people to and from where they need to go, even during severe weather events, especially even critical workers like hospital workers.
Thank you. And because we do, almost all of us conduct regular community meetings, I was able to ask my constituents for some feedback and questions. And one of the questions they asked is, how are they going to get to the tunnel from the airport?
From the airport? So at the airport itself or from their residence?
At the airport itself.
Okay, so at the airport itself, there will be a station right at the drop-off point. It will be readily accessible once we actually have. So we've finalized the agreement yesterday, which many of you saw with the M&A board. And so we are moving forward with that. We will have a space that will be a very accessible space, hopefully right at the bottom where you actually see the rental car stands. Mm-hmm.
Webb, you are recognized.
Thank y'all for being here. I'm going to say this really quick. A lot of that fuel is coming to my district. A lot of my people got it. Don't know how they got it, but it's coming there. Second of all, I have a fireman's son,
So I want to ask some safety questions. And they are, can you speak to the safety measures in place in the system and how they compare to a traditional mass transit system? And what independent safety standards or codes are you building to? And are they more stringent than the minimum requirements to any other transit?
I'd love to answer this, but Nick is actually the expert, so I'll defer to him.
Yeah, we build our system to the NFPA 130 standard, which is the applicable standard for mass transportation, which has a robust set of guidelines that we adhere to, from exit spacing to technical requirements. That is our guideline for how we construct these. Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Eslick, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate you all being here today. I want to clear up some misinformation. I'm a council member, and I'm for this. So not all the council members are against this. I also think this is a solution for traffic, not all the solutions. It will take airport traffic off the road, and instead of having buses. If you're looking at private, clean, safe transportation, I do not think visitors are going to go from the airport through a bus. They will not choose to move on a bus. They haven't historically, and I don't think they're going to if this comes up and gets in that way. So a question that I have, we just went through a mass outage of electricity. Would there be an opportunity, or have y'all looked at or even implemented undergrounding power lines through this system that would help the public as well as your own power? And what would that look like?
Yes, sir. Actually, we currently in Las Vegas. So we currently will run a good amount of conduit, and we run fiber and power through our systems, often our own. We are actually looking at different utilities that can be run under there. It is, if you think about the tunnel as a, circular cross section, we lay a road panel on top of that at about 3 feet off of that, and then there is space underneath there where we run fire suppression systems, the wet standpipe that we have under there, as well as redundant conduit. It's actually very easy to run power, fiber, and other utilities underneath that roadway system. So you can actually put that underneath there in tunnels that are already built.
And also, we voted down a tunnel system several years ago in here, mostly because of the price. And I personally wouldn't trust NDOT with a project of tunneling with that amount of money. So I do believe this would work. This would be something valuable. And I think I hope other people can see past some of the things you're hearing today and support this.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Evans, you're recognized. I will just very quickly say, I know that we've gone at the hour. I've communicated with some folks on Boring's team because the answers are going longer. We're going to run through everybody with the same amount of time just because that would be unfair. So, excuse me, Councilmember, you are not recognized at this time. Councilmember Evans, you are recognized.
I actually wasn't in the queue, but since I am, I'm going to yield my time to Councilmember Cap.
I had you down. Councilmember Cap, you're recognized.
Thank you. Do you believe that you have the power to take any property by eminent domain, yes or no?
My understanding is that a private company does not have the power of eminent domain, no.
Does the Boring Company believe that it will own the rock that it plans to excavate from this tunnel?
No.
Will you, what do you plan to do with that rock?
We will dispose of it in accordance with applicable law. As David mentioned, the Tennessee Department of Transportation would have a right of first refusal if they want to use that rock for one of their projects. Otherwise, we'll dispose of it privately.
Do you plan to sell it, that rock?
No.
You said that you started by saying you came to Nashville because you were so excited by Choose How You Move, but later in your questioning, you said you hadn't even discussed how your tunnels might interact with the Choose How You Move initiative. Have you analyzed what percentage of Nashville's population lives within walking distance to your proposed tunnels?
So we were
It's just a yes or no.
No. Answer the question, please.
Yeah. So we were excited by a
Sorry, my
focused
question was,
on
have you
transit
analyzed what
initiatives.
percentage of Nashville's population lives within walking distance to your proposed tunnels?
There will be some. We don't have the exact percentage.
Okay, so I'll take that as a no. Have you analyzed how many car trips will be added to downtown as a result of people taking car trips to and from your tunnel as opposed to and from the airport?
I'm not sure I understand that question.
So that's a no. Have you done a traffic study to analyze the impacts of traffic of car trips that are being diverted from the airport? Instead of folks driving their cars to the airport, they're going to be, you're proposing that they drive somewhere downtown to get into your tunnel. Have you done a traffic study to analyze those impacts?
It's probably worth noting that the stations will not be located exclusively downtown. So I don't think that the premise that folks would drive downtown to access the system to then go to the airport, I don't necessarily agree with. This will be a transportation option to get to the airport.
So most of the people in the county, your tunnels are downtown. Have you done a traffic study to analyze those impacts? I take that as a no. Will you conduct such a study and release the results publicly?
If this is required under applicable law, we will reduce. We have committed to being transparent. We've made our environmental impact assessment public. We'll continue to do so. If you do have further questions that you'd like written response to, please submit those. We did request that, I think, months ago in advance of this meeting.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. I'm sorry, that is time. I did miss Councilmember Gamble, which I do so often, and I'm so sorry, Councilmember Gamble. The shortness and the screens, I very much apologize. You are recognized.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you all for being here to answer questions. Just one question. As you probably know, Nashville's underground water system is very old, over 100 years, probably almost 140 years old. And a few years ago, we had a water main break downtown under the Bridgestone Arena on Broadway. I guess my question is, are there any interest or opportunities at this point for you to work with Metro government to make improvements to Nashville's water system underground while you are tunneling?
We haven't had those discussions directly, but we'd be very open to them. One of the benefits of being a tunneling company is utilities, whether under the roadway or separate utility tunnels, can be built, and we're excited to explore different opportunities where we can be useful.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Bradford, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. First question, based on what I'm hearing, this question is, are you 100% confident that the construction of this tunnel will not have any negative impacts to any businesses or private residences along the course of this tunnel?
We're very confident in our lack of disruption.
All right, so I asked that because I received an email from a constituent who lives on Glengarry and Winthorne Drive near the proposed site, and they received a letter from their insurance company stating that an addendum was being added to the policy, letting them know that their insurance will not cover any damages caused by sinkholes, which is concerning because it suggests that the insurance companies are actually worried that this project will indeed negatively impact our homeowners. So my follow-up question, since you're fairly confident that this is a non-issue, will you commit to fully compensating and helping cover the cost of repairs for any damages done to private property by this project?
So our commitment and our negotiation and agreement with the Tennessee Department of Transportation will provide that if we damage public or private property, that we would be responsible for it, yes.
At 100% cost?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Gregg, I have you next in the queue.
Thank you, Chair. Gentlemen, I have a question as it relates to a medical emergency. Let's say there's a situation in one of the cars in the tunnel. Can you walk me through visually how that will be addressed?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Nick mentioned that we follow NFPA 130 guidelines. That also means that we have egress within no more than 2,500 feet. Generally speaking, our drivers are trained in terms of response on how to respond. In most cases, if there is a medical emergency in the car, they will continue through to a surface response at a station, and they will be administered by first responders at that point. This goes through an entire operations control center where the driver would communicate with the operations control center. We have cameras throughout this system. We have regular communications throughout this system. They're in communication with all drivers, individual drivers and all drivers at all times. They can guide that through as well as connect with emergency responders. And so that would go through to a typical response. And you are at 2,500 feet, that is no more than a half mile away from it. So it'd be a very rapid response to that where they would meet first responders.
Thank you. And next is just a statement. Many of the companies that do business here in Nashville have a public-facing standalone foundation that does great work here in the community. I would encourage you to think about that separate from the Musk Foundation as you operate here in town.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Vo, you're recognized.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you for being here. I just want to get some clarity. Did the boring company pay Shane Trucking and Excavating in full after identifying the invoicing errors?
Yeah, very, very good question. So we actually have, we're in process of resolving what was a bit of an accounting issue where errors were made in transition with Shane Trucking. We're in regular communication with them. I've spoken with them multiple times in the last week, and both parties have a very productive dialogue on resolution towards that. And actually, Shane Trucking wanted to express a statement that they actually said that they acknowledged reported safety concerns in the media were not accurate, that we are having productive dialogue, and that we look forward to continued productive relationship in the future moving forward.
Okay, so just to clarify, they still not have been paid in full, correct? Because you are still in discussions. Is that correct?
Yeah, payment hasn't been made, but we're in the process of, agreeing the disputed amounts, yeah.
Okay, I appreciate that because you could not find that anywhere. This was reported back months ago, and I think this is closing the loop and helping understand if we're really talking about.
Sure, and part of that is we just don't make public statements about private relationships with vendors, and we have a great relationship with Shane Trucking and value them.
Okay, thank you. My next question, sorry, it goes back to them because there was an alleged, and I want y'all to have the opportunity to answer. Did the boring company attempt to hire Shane workers directly by bypassing the subcontractor?
I'm not aware of any attempts, and I'd certainly have to look into that. I understand that was reported, but I'm not aware of any attempts.
Yes, I'd like a follow-up on that, and I yield the rest of my time to Councilmember Catt. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
There's a third-party environmental impact statement, but for anybody who's got experience reading one of those, there are serious deficiencies in this one. For example, on page 31, it cites reports and data from PSI, Terracon, Hoxton, and other contractors, but none of those data or reports have been disclosed or published. That kind of disclosure is customary in environmental impact statements. Will you share those records with the Metro government and the public?
We're not making any commitments right now. Councilmember Cap, please submit that via written, and we will respond that way.
Does the boring company acknowledge that the Hermitage Formation, this is, for those listening, this is a layer of our limestone that's a little bit less permeable and where they say they plan to mostly tunnel through. But does the boring company acknowledge that the Hermitage Formation has been eroded away from the surface in the area around Mills Creek and Browns Creek, making it impossible to tunnel through that formation in those areas?
We do extensive geotechnical surveys in any areas we're tunneling, and we would never tunnel through unsafe areas.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. That is your time. I would ask the boring company to please not instruct members of this body in how they should or should not proceed. You may ask them if you would like them to do so. Councilmember Nash, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Quite frankly, all my questions have been answered, and I thank you for coming tonight and clearing up some of the issues that people have been asking about. And welcome to Nashville, and I'm looking forward to this project.
Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. A lot of my questions have already been answered. I have two. We know that Nashville or Davidson County is not investing in the project, so we have no particular fiscal note. But can you explain how we could possibly benefit with sales tax and property tax and where that would come from, just briefly?
Yeah, absolutely. We are a willing and excited taxpayer in doing business here. So we will have a significant economic presence, and we will pay all relevant taxes that will go to the relevant communities in which they are accrued, and we will also be a fairly large jobs creator. So we see a huge benefit there. Additionally, just the nature of the system, it is, as many people have noted in public comments in other areas, is a driver of an economic engine, of getting more economic activity more quickly between locations, allowing businesses that were previously unconnected to different areas to actually have connection there and actually have a lot more frequent and rapid economic activity.
Thank you. One of the concerns that I've heard from my constituents specifically, and we're down on the south side, is that, well, this is just for tourists and it's not, kind of like it's not fair. And so I'm wondering if you guys have thought about extending and what those pathways would be, and then interacting with council members as representatives of their community on where that would be most impactful for their neighborhoods or their section of town.
Absolutely. You have to build out a core of the system for people to have destinations to go to, and then you expand into other areas, similar to our system in Las Vegas, where we began around the convention center and then began expanding into other areas and have intention to expand out into further areas of the community. You start with some of those areas that are going to have a very core ridership. Some of that is tourists. Some of that will be commuters moving through it. Some of it will be intra-city, where people can interact with businesses and going in and around that. But we would love for this to be more useful. We are very open to hearing where this can be impactful in different communities. We would be excited to explore different options of how this can be useful in everyone's district and for their constituents. So please definitely send us ideas. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. That is time. The next in the queue is Councilmember Prep T. You're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Be very quick with my questions. The first question that I have is, how long is the lease that you all have with the state?
So that lease has not been finalized yet, but it will be a public document, and we hope to finalize that soon, so that information will be available shortly.
Okay, perfect. And I know that you all briefly touched on this previously, but as part of that lease agreement, do you anticipate receiving any state tax exemptions?
No, like I had mentioned, we haven't requested and we haven't received any sort of special tax incentives in connection with the project.
Okay, thank you. And then with my last question sort of has two parts. In the event that the boring company ceases operations or ceases to exist or stops for one reason or another, in that event, who would take ownership and possession of the tunnel here in Nashville?
Yeah. So it's a great question. Obviously, we're putting significant investment in this, and we want to be here for a long period of time, and we think this is a completely viable solution that we want to be running. But in the very unlikely event that that were to happen, the state would actually take control of those tunnels and we have a decommissioning plan with the state as part of that agreement, and that decommissioning plan puts those tunnels back in their hands, and they're actually left with a very valuable asset at that point.
Okay, and then my last question is, in the event that, again, in that same scenario where the boring company ceases to exist, the way that the tunnel is currently engineered, is there the possibility for it to be retrofitted for other types of transit?
Potentially. I'm not able to speak to hypotheticals of what that would be, but it could certainly have multitude of uses.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Councilmember. And then there were 3 left. With apologies to those in the back, it's how I've kept up with everybody. Councilmember Weiner, you are recognized.
Thank you. Because I've already turned in my questions to the boring company and anticipate their arrival, I turn my time over to Councilmember Cap.
Oh, Councilmember Cap, you are recognized.
Thank you. Will you publicly disclose what chemicals you use in your boring process enough time before you start digging to allow genuine public understanding and discussion of those chemicals and their impacts on groundwater and surface waterways?
We've been pretty open.
I'm just looking for a yes or no. Will you disclose it or not?
Okay. We will disclose it in accordance with applicable law.
Does the boring company acknowledge that the Carter's Formation, which is at the surface in the areas around Mill Creek and Browns Creek, that's an especially permeable layer of the limestone underneath Nashville, Does the boring company acknowledge that that layer interacts directly with the watersheds of Mill Creek and Browns Creek?
We have done extensive aquatic reviews and
Sorry, I'm just
environmental
asking for a
reviews.
yes or no. Are
So
you aware of the geology in those areas? Yes or no?
You're asking for a very specific question that we'd have to defer to the engineers and the
Well,
environmental.
can you bring those folks in before us to answer questions, yes or no, please, if you
Can
don't
you
have
submit-
those answers?
If you would submit questions, we'd be happy to.
No, I'm asking for you to publicly answer questions in front of the people of Nashville. Will you make those folks available or not?
We will not commit to anything right now, but we are open to looking at those questions and seeing if they're open to review and public comment.
Have you studied the deadly disasters that have occurred in other tunneling projects through karst geology, such as Nashville's, including the Raleigh Tunnel project in the Swiss Alps, where karst tunneling led to significant sinking of the surface?
We've done extensive research and historical data in both Nashville and other areas in tunneling.
Then why is it not reflected in the environmental impact statement?
Environmental concern.
Yeah, I don't know why something would be or not be for a very specific question. We'd have to.
It's customary in environmental impact statements to study issues that are common to the type of project that you propose. Are you willing to amend and augment your environmental impact statement to encompass that question?
We're not going to amend the statement for a very specific scenario outlined here, but we do have a number of scenarios that were analyzed in the environmental impact analysis.
Will you reimburse Metro Nashville for the training, equipment, and deployment of our first responders, for the training necessary and response to incidents that occur inside of your tunnels?
We're going to be treated like any other business that does business in Tennessee.
Is that a yes or no?
Councilmember, I'm afraid that is time. Councilmember Rutherford, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to start by saying that I'm not here in opposition to this project. And I want to thank you for being here. It is important for us to hear from you. It's important for you to hear from us. And it's important for all of us to hear from the general public. Most of my questions have been answered, but I'm down to one basic two-part question, and that is, can you tell us about some lessons learned from your previous projects that will help you to make this one more efficient? That's the first part. The second part, from your presentation, you mentioned research and development. And so I wanted to ask a question along those lines in terms of, can you give an example, something specific as to a mistake that has been made on a prior project that you would tell yourself, well, we don't want that to happen in Nashville? And I'm not referencing the prior discussion about some of the other irregularities and such that we've already discussed, but something different.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, great question. So I think lessons learned, we've learned a whole lot of lessons. Tunneling is actually there's a lot of known things in tunneling, but it is actually a very difficult process, which is why only 7 miles of passenger tunnel have been built outside of us in the U.S. And it's a costly and time-intensive process. We've developed a lot of innovations around that. And I think in Las Vegas, it has been a great learning ground of how we actually make projects happen. A lot of that is in working with different permitting authorities, working with different parts of the first responders and the different parts of the Clark County Commission, and how we actually move the project forward and get alignment across that so that everybody is moving forward in the right direction at the same time. In terms of R&D, boy, we've learned a ton in R&D. That is really our reason for being. We do a test tunnel with every machine before it goes out there. And so our goal is to not have those learning experiences happen actually out in the field. That means we do extensive geotechnical, extensive civil engineering research. On our machines, we've learned over 2,000 different advancements on them. And that is part of that iterative engineering process that goes into this, where we actually put the machines out there, figure out where there are points of failure or where there are points where it needs to improvement, and then take those rapid improvements back into the engineering process before we bring the machines out into the field.
In the remaining seconds, can you point to the mistake?
Councilmember, I'm afraid you do not have any remaining seconds. Last but definitely not least, Councilmember Stiles, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Chair. So quickly, one, I want to thank the public for being here, coming out, for your questions, your comments, your concerns. It's understandable. You're upset. You feel like you weren't included in the conversation because you weren't. So my first question for the Boring Company is, how many meetings were had with this administration prior to the press conference where the announcement was made about this project? And then for the administration, now that we know from the Boring Company that there are not going to be any road closures, can we reprioritize Murfreesboro Road for a BRT project since it is so heavily traveled? Also, why did this administration mislead this body and the public about having any knowledge about this project at the onset of the announcement, which is what is bringing us here today while we're having conversations about things we can't do?
Councilmember, if you would please direct your questions to the Boring Company right now. Those are the questions we are asking at this moment.
Yeah, Councilmember, I appreciate the question. The short answer is there were at least 3 conversations that involved members of the mayor's staff before the announcement.
And you, if you would, remind me of the other 2 questions.
They were not for you. They were about the negligence of the administration, but we've been told that they won't be answering. So.
Okay.
All right. Without anybody remaining in the queue, I would like to thank the Boring Company again for being here. I will let y'all pack up and head out, and then we will move, as discussed in opening remarks of this committee, to suspend the rules so that those who are still here who signed up to speak, if they would like to finish speaking, we have Ms. Emily Anspach. Oh, sorry, there are several other people on the back as well. Thank you, Special Counsel, for letting me know there was a whole nother side to this. Thank you. So I have still in the queue, Emily Anspach, you have a minute left of your time, and then also Chris Seifert, and then Josh Wesley, Robin Haynes, Craig Bardot, Tristan Warner, I think that is, and Shannon Kerr. If y'all are still here, without objection, we will suspend the rules so that you can have public comment period. Ms. Anspach, you are recognized for your remaining minute.
I'm going to try and pick up where I left off. Just as a reminder, I left off talking about how Shane Trucking was not paid and their unacknowledged OSHA complaints. And I'm going to follow that by saying I was a child here in Nashville in 2010 when the city flooded. I was here just a few weeks ago when an ice storm left hundreds of thousands without power for days and weeks in freezing temperatures, including me. I could not go to a hotel. I was cold in my home. Our city is not prepared for the disaster we are flirting with by allowing this tunnel to be built. We should be using our resources to reinforce our infrastructure and protect the people of Nashville, not building more tourist traps and allowing billionaires to exploit us. I'm asking the council to do whatever it takes to stop this. We do not need a for-profit, dangerous amusement park ride underneath our streets. We need real, affordable, safe public transit, and we need sustainable and reliable infrastructure to help keep Nashville whole.
Thank you, ma'am. Chris Seifert, if you are here, you have 2 minutes.
My name's Chris Seifert.
Oh, sorry, apologies.
Oh, no worries, no worries. Everybody does that. I sent an email to my council member, so I'll just read it. So I said, I wanted to ask as a private citizen if you or the other Metro Council know and can provide info on a few things that have interested me regarding the proposed tunnel. Is the Boring Tunnel Company aware of all the areas along the proposed route that have contaminated groundwater? How would they deal with the contaminated groundwater they would likely encounter? I mean, like 100% they're going to encounter this stuff. So I read the environmental impact statement. It's not good. Will the completed tunnel provide a conduit for contaminated groundwater to migrate? What about when it is still under construction? Will the tunnels affect properties that have active vapor mitigation systems along the tunnel's pathways? Would it crack the limestone and provide any additional preferential pathways for the contaminated groundwater and the vapors? Will the tunnel have a vapor mitigation system? So I didn't see anything regarding groundwater or vapor intrusion in the Davy Group's environmental assessment. So this may have all been addressed in their master plan, but I don't really have access to that. So if you guys could find out those answers, I'd be appreciative. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Josh, Wesley, if you're here, you're welcome to speak.
My name is Josh Wesley, aka Professor West. I live in District 1, but I regularly commute to the airport area for work. Additional transit options will always pique my interest. The Boring Company claims to be committed to maximum transparency, but as we witnessed tonight, they was ducking and dodging questions and giving non-answers all night. The lack of transparency is one thing, but if we're being real, I'm skeptical about the viability of the entire project. One of the most fallacious arguments I hear often from folks in support of this tunnel is the success of the Vegas loop as proof of concept for the Music City loop, as if they're comparable at all. How is a 2-mile tunnel underneath the convention center, where the primary mode of transportation used to be walking, any indicator of how efficient a 10-mile single-lane tunnel would be on easing the traffic congestion in a major city like Nashville? They keep talking about what it will do, what it will do. The Vegas loop, what it will do. But they barely managed to complete 5 of the proposed 68 miles in Vegas. It's been 7 years, but we're supposed to believe they'll get 10 miles done here by next year? Why are we allowing the Boring Company to stake the future of Nashville transit on unfulfilled promises in Las Vegas? There's too many questions, not enough answers for this project to be barreling ahead. We deserve the dignity of self-governance and the ability to self-determine our own future. This ain't it.
All right, thank you, sir. If we could keep clapping to a minimum, the vice mayor is here, and I know that she is really good at enforcing that rule, and I'm not as good, but, would like to live up to her standards. Robin Haynes, you're recognized if you are still here and wish to speak.
Hi, I'm Robin Haynes. I'm a lifelong Nashvilleian, and I just believe this is an imaginary problem. It is not difficult to get to the airport from downtown or anywhere in Nashville. I've been doing it all my life. It takes me 20 minutes to get there from Bellevue. BNA is one of the easiest airports to get in and out of across the world. And so I think this is an uninvited solution to a problem that we don't have. If you need to get to the airport quicker, leave earlier or something. I don't know. That's all.
Thank you, ma'am. Craig Bardo, you are recognized if you're here and would wish to speak.
I'm Craig Bardo with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I want to speak to the question underneath this entire proceeding. Who decides? Because no presentation, no technical framing, no procedural choreography changes the basic political reality. The people of Nashville did not ask for this project. This project did not emerge from public demand. It did not arise from community planning. It entered the city through elite access, through relationships and governance channels unavailable to ordinary residents. The same networks of elite influence reshaping national governance are now being invited to redesign Nashville. Just yesterday, a board appointed by the mayor and approved by Metro Council voted unanimously to advance an agreement with the Boring Company. This is how privately conceived projects acquire public momentum, not through need, not through consent, but through governance structures that shield decision makers from accountability as decisions move forward. And what's happening here today is not transparency, it's political laundering. Because once a privately driven project is repeatedly staged inside government proceedings, debate shifts quietly from what the hell is this to administrative problem solving. That's how the illusion of inevitability is produced. Metro's responsibility is not to workshop privately conceived projects into public legitimacy. Its responsibility is to represent the will and needs of Nashville residents. Every additional meeting that treats this project as viable confers legitimacy it has not earned. You're not evaluating a proposal, you're normalizing a decision structured around the preferences of a decadent billionaire class, not the needs of Nashville residents. Metro's responsibility is non-cooperation, not facilitation of billionaire vanity projects.
Thank you, sir. That's your time. I think you had timed that beforehand. Tristan Warner, if you're still here, you may speak. All right, not seeing Tristan Warner. Could be Kristen Warner. Okay, I think it's Tristan. Shannon Kerr, if you are still here and wish to speak, you may do so now.
Thank you, council members, especially those of you who have remained and are here to listen to your community, especially to those like council member Cap, who zealously cross-examined the boring. What I am not is an engineer, a scientist, a community planner. I can't speak to the details of this. Clearly, we have more informed people to that regard. What I am, however, is a resident of Nashville. I am a civically engaged citizen. And I'm a lawyer. I am involved in this political process. And what I see, and it's hard not to draw parallels between what we're seeing here at the local level and what we see at the national level right now, which is entities with outsized money and therefore outsized power coming into communities and inserting their will and imposing it without having any communication with the community that it involves, and no accountability. So I I have nothing more to add other than to say I'm going to end with a Lord of the Rings quote, if you'll permit me, because it is something that I refer to often in these times, which is when Gandalf is talking to Frodo. And Frodo says, "I wish it need not have happened in my time." And Gandalf, our wise wizard, replies, "So do I. And so do all who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us." And council members, I ask, what will you do with this time that you've been given and the powers that you do hold to fight back as much as you can against this?
Thank you, ma'am. All right. Sorry, thank you, ma'am. That ends our public comment period. I appreciate y'all staying around until the back half of this meeting so that we could give everybody an opportunity to talk. As indicated at the beginning of the meeting, if council members still wish to say anything on the record or have a discussion about the Boring Company in this committee, we can do so now. If anybody would like to be recognized, I see Councilmember Parker, Councilmember Porterfield, Councilmember Ewing, and Evans, and then Swara. So council member, it was the Parker, thank you, I said it, but I wasn't writing. Porterfield, Ewing, Evans, and Swara in that order. Y'all actually were kind to not all throw your hands up like simultaneously so we could figure that out. Councilmember Parker, you are recognized, sir.
Thank you, Chair. So I don't think this project is viable. I don't think there's going to be a tunnel with Teslas running to the airport in certainly not a year. I don't think in 5 years. I don't think in 7 years. I do think it will be attempted, and there's going to be a lot of problems, I think. And, you know, the two things that I'm really focusing on, like mitigation, is, you know, we know that Murfreesboro Road is our busiest transit corridor. We know that it's one of the most dangerous corridors for pedestrians. And we know that Nashvilleians overwhelmingly voted to approve safety and transit improvements for that corridor. We know that those are now sort of on hold because I think the city is concerned that the state is going to be fast-tracking anything boring related, and that it would be difficult for us to get permission there for any of that. So we have to find a way to, I mean, if they attempt this thing for 7 years and we haven't made any improvements, like we have to figure out a way to make life safer and better for the folks that use that corridor every day. And then additionally, water is my biggest concern, groundwater. The stuff with the illicit discharges in Clark County is super duper concerning. I was not really happy with their answers there. And I don't know what we need to ask water to do to try to monitor this situation, but I'm trying to think through that just to make sure that these chemicals, these accelerants, whatever it is that they're utilizing are not making their way into the groundwater, into our wastewater treatment facilities, et cetera. Because like I said, I don't think this is viable, but we could have a long, lengthy stretch of attempts to complete this thing, and that could be very damaging. So I want to think through how we mitigate that.
Thank you, Council Member. And if my colleagues will indulge me in just a minute to reflect on that, since I've waived my time so everybody could ask questions. We, I believe, have a duty and obligation in this body to see through the Choose How You Move initiative to the extent that the voters approved it overwhelmingly. Many of them did so on the premise that we would have better transit on Murfreesboro Pike. And that was the vision that we sold to this county and that we sold to the people who agreed to spend their own hard-earned dollars in order to do that. And so I do agree that we absolutely cannot let this or anything else distract us from fulfilling the promises that we made to people when they agreed to spend their money on it. So thank you for raising that. Councilmember Porterfield, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I first would like to thank you for hosting this meeting. As I have spoken about this on multiple occasions up to this point, when this project was initially announced back in July and August, when I served as the chair of the Budget and Finance Committee and my colleague, Councilmember Parker, served as the chair of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, we initially did a joint request through our special counsel at that time, Special Counsel Darby, requesting that the Boring Company come out to answer questions. At that point in time, the lion's share of information that we were getting was coming from the media, from social media. We were not in any direct engagement with this company. We could not answer the questions of our constituents. And unfortunately, here we are today. We still have so many unanswered questions from our constituents. At that point in time, they chose not to come to us, saying that they did not have any business before this council and determined that they were not going to come when we respectfully pushed back and asked, since they were so committed to the spirit of transparency, if they would come back come and speak to this body so that we could ask those questions on the record. Never heard from them. There was no response to this body until I filed legislation opposing this project. And to me, that is completely disrespectful. That shows that there is no spirit of transparency for this company. They have no intentions of engaging with this body. They picked and choose which council members they engaged with prior to that. Even it was literally the day before we were going to vote on this legislation when we heard from them saying that they opposed the resolution that was filed. Up to this point, they still have not talked to my state senator, Senator Charlene Oliver, who also represents the airport. They've not talked to my understanding. They've not talked to my state representative. So I don't understand why they're not speaking to the elected officials that do represent this area. As a council member at large and representing over 700,000 Nashvillians, I had to hear about this through the media. But I was told that a district council person that didn't represent anywhere near the airport was spoken to about this project. And I find that very interesting when you don't represent the airport or downtown, but they're picking and choosing who they're speaking with, and they're not talking to all of the elected officials that are representing the people. It is evident that there's not a spirit of transparency. There is evident by the way that they danced around these answers. And I'm so thankful for Councilmember Kay Clapp using his experience as is it a prosecutor, whatever it is that he did. Thank you, because you did your big one with that one. So thank you for everything that you did. My two quick questions on this, and then a final comment to my colleagues. And also thank you to the administration for going on record saying that they are not meeting with this company weekly. So, you know, they're telling us one thing. Our constituents are sending us emails, fact-checking in real time, that sending us articles about the information that they're sharing is not true. The administration is fact-checking in real time, telling us that what they're sharing is not true. So I don't understand. At this juncture, I don't understand how anybody in this space could still be supportive of this project. So my question is, one, and this is speaking into the universe because I know that the questions were directed to the Boring Company, so we don't have Metro Legal here. This is not, I know we're not directly talking to the administration today, so speaking into the universe, what can we do as a body to stop this project since this is nothing that is coming to us legislatively? What can this body do to stop this project? Two, what is the recourse when this project fails? We see where in multiple municipalities municipalities across this country, they worked with, or they tried to work with, the local elected officials, and everybody shot them down, and they were not able to move forward. Vegas is the only place that they were able to have a sentiment of the project. Everyone else where they proposed this shot this down. So now they're working with the state instead of working with us because they knew we were going to shoot it down too. So what recourse do we have when this project fails, as it has been failing everywhere else? And lastly, I'm going to encourage any of my colleagues that are still here to please vote in support of the resolution opposing the Boring Company. We heard from constituents today about their concerns. We've heard from colleagues about the concerns. I'm asking our constituents, if you have an issue with this project, email your council member and ask them to support this resolution. And to be clear, that resolution does not stop the project, and I've been very transparent about that. But what it does do is it gets us on the record saying that this is not something that we support. On that little X space, whatever it is, I don't support that website anymore. I actually deleted my information from there a long time ago. But on that X space, I believe he's the CEO of the company, whatever that man is, he said that he came here because of the overwhelming support and that he wouldn't do a project of this juncture in a place where it's not supported. Well, we see that it's not supported. We see our constituents don't support it. The only people that spoke in support are business entities that are going to benefit from it. Our community don't support this. Many of the council members don't support this. So hopefully they will hear that message and will move on to somewhere else where it is actually wanted. I don't know anybody that will want something like this, but move on to another place. So again, I'm just asking my colleagues to support that resolution in opposition. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember. Y'all were doing so good before. Councilmember Ewing, you are recognized.
Okay, first of all, I want to amplify what you just said, Councilmember Porterfield. I was one of those people who did meet with the Boring Company. My district has no tangential relationship to the site. The only relationship I have to what they are doing right now is that my church happens to be right next door to their entry point at that parking lot, whatever number they assign to it. And she's absolutely right. They cherry-picked. They chose people that they wanted to meet with. I actually forced my way in, so I wasn't one of those chosen ones. But I have many very serious concerns. I have a PhD in sustainability. So I do know that Councilmember Cap was absolutely right, that the environmental impact assessment was not done with the rigor and the scientific acumen that is necessary. They were referencing documents that were internal to the company to the extent that it sounded a lot more like a marketing campaign for the company for their benefit rather than anything else. So there are a lot of concerns. This project is set to, if it does go, and I don't see that they have really convinced anyone that their project is going to be viable given their track record around the country where things have gone awry more often than not. But they are tunneling under 3 bodies of water that have endemic species that are just located here that you can't find anywhere else. And people might not all care about the Nashville crayfish, but I do. And I think that that's an important thing. So that concerns me. The safety record that they have concerns me. The fact that they have massive quantities of OSHA violations, and we're supposed to trust them with the well-being of our working force who would be working ostensibly on this project. I have deep concerns about that, and I do not feel that they have offered suitable responses. Lastly, and very importantly, the disabilities community, the ADA Section 2 requires that any public effort include accommodations for that community. They did not answer my questions. They did not answer the questions of the chair of the Mayor's Advisory Council on people with disabilities. Those questions need to be answered in a public way. So I do expect that that company, and I hope that they view this tape afterwards, I do expect that they will provide us answers on that. I also don't know the answers to Councilmember Porterfield's questions about how we could possibly stop this, but I have a deep interest in trying to, because I do not think that they have proven that they merit having such a large project here in our city, and I do not think it's going to solve any of our problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. I wish we could take a class on our endemic species, because every time I learn about something that lives or exists only here and nowhere else, it is such a fascinating thing. Councilmember Evans, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I guess I was thinking during the presentation, kind of related to the only thing that I could kind of align in my mind of this experience, and that is above ground development and blasting outcomes, and, you know, kind of that intersection between local and state law and process whenever somebody ends up being harmed by a blasting issue, and kind of how that ends up coming back to council members at the district level who are managing those direct relationships. And so I'd love, I think, kind of speaking into the universe as well, from an internal Metro perspective, like where all the code that kind of applies across this type of project at the state level, the local level, where there's potentially conflict or where things overlap from a guidance perspective, like thinking about blasting. You know, we got this local fire marshal that would investigate. We've got the state fire marshal that would investigate. But oftentimes, like when we're thinking about state law that is requiring a specific remediation for a resident, usually it doesn't, either it's complicated to go through the state, long time to go through the state. It ends up being the local council member that gets involved and pressures the situation to get the remediation to happen for the resident that's involved. And so thinking ahead to the next council body that could be impacted by this, what does that look like? And I'm not trying to legitimize a project, but I am trying to think ahead about issues that we should be thoughtful about if there's not a way to, you know, do something different than this project.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Suara, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair, and I have to thank Councilmember Cap again. I think we cannot say that enough. I'm one of the people that they reach out to meet with. They actually tried to meet with me 3 times, and I declined all 3 times. And the last time I sent them an email that my reason for not wanting to meet is 2. One, from the inception of this project, is being clouded in secrecy and a backdoor policy. I did not want to be a party to that. I also don't want to be a party to where they're talking about we met with council members to give a legitimacy, and my name is included in one of the council members that did that. So I told them, no, anything that we need to discuss, we should discuss it publicly. And so I'm glad we get to do that today. Thinking about this meeting today, I was thinking about 2 things, and I wanted to frame, I still have a lot of questions, by the way, that I didn't get to because of the 2 minutes, but it's okay. I was thinking about it in 2 terms. Why did they choose Nashville, and why should Nashville choose them? And why they chose Nashville, that was why I was asking them the question about the profit piece of it. Because I think somebody talked about they're doing this, it's gonna save us money, we're not paying anything, almost as if it's a charity, but it's not. I wanted to get to, did they decide to come to Nashville, or did somebody invite them to Nashville? I did not get an answer to that. But it's very important for us to note that whatever answer they're going to give is gonna pivot back to it's about making money. And so the environmental stuff, the security stuff, the safety stuff, I think people should have that in mind, that they will do what is best for their pocket. But as legislators, as people that represent Nashville, it is our responsibility to make sure that we don't make money, just like the airports did, saying that it's gonna make this ton of money. We cannot base our decision on money. That's not our job. The second part of it is, why should Nashville choose them? And I was thinking that if I'm supposed to give a contract to somebody, I've never dealt with them before, what I would do is look at the record they have with another business. And so I started looking at Nevada. And this is very interesting. There's a couple of articles that I found, and I put all 3 articles in ChatGPT, and I said, read all of them, and then summarize this for me. Oh, it's a long thing. You all don't want to see it. But it says the conclusion is that taken together, the 3 articles shows a company that breaks environmental laws repeatedly, endangers workers and first responders, evades oversight and ignores agreement, uses political influence to avoid consequences, views fines as a cost of doing business, and cannot be trusted to operate safely or transparently. That's what ChatGPT said. It's about 3 pages, but that's the conclusion. And I came with an open mind because I wanted to listen to what they have to say and answer their question. But as they kept evading the questions, as CAP kept asking and they could not give the response, if it is about transparency, if it's about answering the question, they did a very terrible job. What they did was the marketing piece. They came to say what they want to say, but what we want to know about, I did not think was answered. When we're talking about water, about people, they talk about the 800 findings in Las Vegas. I did not do the math quickly enough. Okay, 690 was about paper. What about the rest of them? What was that about? And what is the cost to the people that are drinking that water? Who is responsible for that environmental disaster that people are going to face? I did not get that answer. I was hoping they will answer that question. I still did not get that. So I say all of that to say that I came in here, I did not trust it, but I want to be open-minded. Political views aside, we have a job to represent Nashville. And we have a job to do what is best for our citizens. So I came to listen so I can make that determination. And after everything that happened, I do agree with ChatGPT that this company cannot be trusted and that it will not operate safely and transparently for the people of Nashville. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Thinking about agreeing with a computer is distressing. I also do want to note that we did not open this up to the questions of departments and stuff like that today because we have ongoing dialogue with them. But I want to thank the Water Department for being here because I know the Water Department has been here and has been listening to this, and we'll have a lot of questions about how stormwater in particular will work with this. And I appreciate their being here to kind of listen to those concerns today. Councilmember Vo, you are next in the queue.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you for having the meeting for us, and thank you to our community for coming out. I really want to just focus on Nashvillians. That's who we represent as elected officials, and for me, when I, heard that still a local business here is still not paid, 70% of Nashvillians live paycheck to paycheck. We are cost burdened, and I don't know how someone could survive not being paid for work that was done 5-6 months ago. And so for all the people that they could employ, what happens if they have invoicing errors and they're not paid for months? And so, to me, that is so concerning. And for me, Nashvillians deserve more than headlines, more than speculations, more than generalities. They deserve facts, and they deserve clarity on how this project would affect our neighborhoods, our tax dollars, our traffic patterns, and our future growth, because that is what hinges is our city and what happens to our lives here. And when a private company proposes a major infrastructure undertaking for our city, it's not unreasonable. In fact, it is our duty to ask for detailed plans, financial commitments, risk assessments, clear lines of accountability. And let's talk about the financial concerns. What is the full cost of this project? I have seen all types of numbers. They just keep going up. Who bears the risk if ridership projections fail short? What happens if construction costs increase, which we hear every day when we talk about housing? Are there public subsidy, tax incentives, or long-term maintenance obligations that national taxpayers would ultimately shoulder? We can't afford vague assurances. We need binding details. Our residents deserve to know whether this proposal protects public dollars or exposes our city to long-term financial liability. There are also serious language concerns. I'm going to keep talking about this during my term. Language access. Everyone in our city deserves to understand what is going on. Everything tonight was in English. Everything that we discussed. What information have they shared with our immigrant communities? For the 200 organizations, they couldn't even name one tonight. And as we are growing and diverse, I, really, really think it's so important that we bring in as many people, and that is the role that we play in being elected and standing up for communities that often are sidelined and often are never even included in the conversation here. And, when we effectively shut people out of a decision that could affect their daily lives, that is a problem. So equity requires inclusion, and inclusion requires intentional communication. And so for me, transparency builds trust, and, for me, silence erodes it. I was in my district, Murfreesboro Pike, busiest corridor, big part of my district, and I had small businesses also meeting with the Boring Company. I met with this, when I was going and to the small business to just be a patron, they were like, oh yeah, I told them to come meet with you, but I never heard from them. And, for me, those are things where, why are certain people only chosen or not? And for a project like this, everyone needs to be included. So, for me, I'm just asking what our constituents expect. Answers about funding, answers about safety, answers about community engagement, answers about language access, answers about oversight and long-term accountability. And so with that, thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember. I do not have anybody else in my queue. Going once, going twice. We're adjourned.